You are not your wounds. You are not the ache that once hollowed your chest at midnight, not the trembling voice that broke beneath the weight of unspoken words, not the betrayal that split your trust wide open like thunder tearing the sky. You are not the memories that haunt you or the names you were called when the world forgot how to be kind. You are not the pain. You are the awareness of the pain. You are the light that observed it all, silently, eternally. When you were born, you didn't arrive carrying stories of inadequacy. You didn't cry because you were ashamed. You didn't question your worth. You came as pure presence, without labels, without bruises, without wounds. You came from the infinite, dipped in divine essence, kissed by the breath of the eternal. That sacred truth has never left you. It only became buried beneath the rubble of human experience. What if I told you that nothing that has ever happened to you has the power to define you unless you let it? What if your trauma is not your identity, but a teacher that came in disguise? What if the greatest heartbreaks are not there to destroy you, but to awaken the part of you that no longer needs to be validated by anything external? What if your suffering was a seed, and now is the season to let it bloom into wisdom? There is a voice within you that has never been hurt. There is a presence in you that has never been abandoned. There is an essence so whole, so untouched by the illusions of this world that even your deepest wound cannot reach it. That is who you are. You are the sky. Your pain is the passing weather. The ego wants to replay the hurt, keep the wound alive, make it your name, your badge, your narrative. It will tell you, you are broken, you are unsafe, you are unworthy. But who is this you that hears those words? Who is the one watching those thoughts arise? That is your soul. That is the witness. That is the still, timeless you. And the moment you identify with that eternal presence, you become free. Freedom isn't about changing what happened, it's about changing your relationship to what happened. You can't rewrite the past, but you can choose whether to relive it or release it. Every time you touch a memory and give it permission to pass through you without clinging to it, you heal. Every time you refuse to define yourself by your scars, you reclaim your power. Every time you stop asking, why did this happen to me? And start asking, what is this here to teach me? You step into the sacred alchemy of transformation. The wound is not who you are. The wound is where the light entered. There is an old Sufi proverb that says, the wound is the place where the light enters you. And so often we misinterpret this as meaning we must stay wounded to be spiritual. But that is not what the mystics meant. The light enters through the wound, yes, but it does not stop there. It enters so it may heal, and in healing, it reveals to you what has always been whole. You are not your brokenness. You are the light that came to mend it. You see, the universe doesn't make mistakes. There are no accidental souls. You came here with a blueprint, with purpose written into your very cells, and no amount of suffering can erase that. In fact, the pain may be the path that leads you home. The shattered places, they are not your shame. They are your initiation. The philosopher Heraclitus once said, no man ever steps in the same river twice, for it's not the same river, and he is not the same man. You are not who you were when the pain found you. You have changed, grown, unfolded. And now you are standing on the edge of becoming. Forgive yourself for the ways you coped when you didn't know how to heal. Forgive yourself for clinging to identities rooted in survival. Forgive yourself for believing the lies of the ego when you were too weary to hear the truth of your soul. There is nothing in you that needs to be fixed, only remembered. You are not a project. You are a presence. The spiritual journey is not about becoming something. It is about unbecoming everything that is not truly you. It is the shedding of stories, of wounds, of masks. It is the return to essence, to that silent space within where nothing has ever been broken. Think of a tree that has been struck by lightning, the bark scorched, a branch fallen. But look again in the spring. See the new leaves sprouting, the sap still rising, life continuing its sacred rhythm. The wound is part of its story, yes, but it is not the whole story. And so it is with you. The ego will say, protect yourself. The soul will say, open. The ego will say, you are damaged. The soul will whisper, you are divine. The ego will say, stay in fear. The soul will sing, love anyway. The healing begins not when the pain ends, but when the identification with the pain ends. When you stop saying, this is who I am, and start saying, this is what I experienced, and I am the one who witnessed it all. You are the witness, the awareness, the vast open field of presence in which all things come and go. You are not your wounds. You are the love that survived them. You are not your wounds. You are not what they did to you. You are not what you lost. You are not the rejection, the abandonment, the silence, or the noise. Those were moments, not definitions. Those were storms, not structures. The sacred architecture of your soul remains untouched. You are not here to be defined by the chapters that brought you pain. You are here to realize you are the author, not the page. There is a stillness that lives beneath all things. Beneath the chaos, beneath the sorrow, beneath the name you were given and the roles you perform, there is a holy silence that has never been disturbed. It is the part of you that watched you cry and did not crumble. It is the part of you that walked through fire and still whispered love to the world. That part of you is not your story. It is your soul. It is the eternal you before the world told you who to be. And the truth is, your wounds do not make you weak. They make you wider. They open the heart, stretch the spirit, expand the soul. They are not signs of failure. They are invitations to remember your wholeness. Every time your heart broke, it was not the end. It was a cracking open, a sacred rupture through which something larger could be born. Pain is a holy messenger. It arrives not to punish, but to reveal. It is the finger pointing back to the presence within you that never left, even in the darkest hours. And yet, we resist it. We numb it, we shame it, we bury it beneath the noise of distraction, but pain unacknowledged becomes the prison. Pain embraced becomes the portal. When the Buddha said, life is suffering, he was not cursing existence, he was blessing it with honesty. He was inviting us to stop running, because it is only when we stop running from pain that we can finally meet the presence that transcends it. That presence is you. You are not your wounds. You are the unchanging awareness in which the wound appeared, healed, and dissolved. You are the field, not the storm. You are the light, not the shadow. You are the witness of the wound, not the wound itself. And when you return to this truth, healing begins not as an effort, but as a natural unfolding. Let go of the need to explain why it happened. The mind wants reasons. The soul wants freedom. And freedom comes not from the answer, but from the release. You are allowed to not understand it. You are allowed to not justify it. You are allowed to simply say, this hurt me, and I will no longer carry it. Imagine your soul like a mountain. Wind and rain may erode the surface. Lightning may split the bark of the trees, but the mountain remains. Steady, silent, immovable. That is who you are, beneath it all. You may have been bruised, but you are never broken. You may have fallen, but you have never failed. There are no wasted wounds. Every one of them carved space for more compassion. Every one of them deepened the well of your empathy. And that is the sacred paradox. The very pain that once threatened to shatter you now makes you more whole. The ego clings to pain because it uses it to build identity. It says, this is what happened to me, this is who I am. But the soul is not interested in who you were. The soul is always whispering who you are. Right now, in this breath, in this eternal now. The soul says, you are light, you are enough, you are free. Forgiveness is not condoning, forgiveness is not forgetting, forgiveness is freedom. It is the sacred act of saying, I choose peace over poison. I choose truth over story. I choose to no longer bleed from a wound I did not inflict. That choice is yours. It always has been. Healing is not becoming invincible. It's becoming transparent, letting the light pass through you again, letting love flow again, letting the river of grace wash away the debris of identity until all that remains is presence, naked, real, awake. You are not your wounds. You are the open sky into which the clouds of sorrow have passed. You are the sacred observer, the divine breath behind the grief, the untouched spirit beneath the trauma. That is why nothing you've ever gone through has managed to extinguish you, because you are eternal. And even now, in this moment, with everything you carry, you are whole. You don't need fixing, you need remembering. You need to remember that you came here not to stay safe, but to be free. Not to avoid pain, but to transcend it. Not to live without scars, but to learn that scars do not diminish the soul, they illuminate it. When you begin to see your pain not as the end of your story, but as a sacred sentence in a much larger book, everything changes. Suddenly the tears were necessary. The silence was sacred. The darkness was divine. Because they brought you here to this moment where you can finally say, I am not my wounds. I am not my story. I am not my fear. I am love remembering itself. I am presence awakening to itself. I am spirit, infinite, eternal, whole. And so are you. You are not your wounds. The world may have told you otherwise. It may have pointed at your scars and tried to name them failure. It may have seen your tenderness as weakness, your silence as defeat. But that was the world speaking from its own fear. That was the world forgetting its own light. You must not listen to the echo of unawakened minds. Listen instead to the silence within you that has never forgotten who you truly are. You are not the brokenness. You are the one who survived it. And even more than survival, you are the one who transformed because of it. The caterpillar does not curse the cocoon. It surrenders to the darkness because it knows in some eternal place beyond the mind that the wings are coming. What feels like death is often just the shedding of an old self. What feels like collapse is often the beginning of becoming. Trust this. Pain is not the absence of God. Pain is the voice of your spirit calling you home. Home not to safety, but to surrender. Home not to avoidance, but to awareness. Home to the part of you that remains untouched by all that has ever happened. Rumi said, try not to resist the changes that come your way. Instead, let life live through you. When you stop resisting your wound, it stops ruling your life. When you stop fighting what hurt you, you begin to uncover what healed you. You are not your wounds. You are the timeless breath behind the pain, the breath that has been with you through every tear, through every disappointment, through every closed door. That breath is God whispering, I never left. You've felt lost, we all have. But how can you ever truly be lost when what you're seeking lives within you? You search for healing, but healing is the return to your own being. Not the self made of memory and fear, but the self made of awareness and light. You are not here to carry your suffering like a badge. You are here to transcend it. You are here to become so deeply rooted in your soul that nothing external can shake the truth of who you are. Do not reduce your vastness to one moment of pain. You are an entire cosmos pretending to be a person, a river of eternity flowing through a temporary form. And yes, this form may bleed, it may ache, but the river flows on, untouched, undisturbed. Let go of the idea that healing must look like perfection. Healing is not linear. It is not clean. It is not always graceful. Sometimes it looks like falling apart, like lying on the floor in surrender, like being cracked open so fully that there is no turning back. And that is the gift, because once you are cracked open, the light inside you has no choice but to shine. You are not your wounds. You are not the childhood you had to survive. You are not the relationship that failed. You are not the words spoken in anger or the silence that followed. You are not the missed opportunity, the diagnosis, the loss. You are not the night you almost gave up. You are the dawn that followed. You are the quiet resilience no one saw. You are the breath that kept going. You are the heart that chose to stay open, even when it would have been easier to close. And that is the miracle. Not that you were never wounded, but that you kept loving anyway. That is the divine in you. You are not what happened. You are how you chose to meet what happened. That is where your power lives, not in rewriting the past, but in reclaiming the present. Not in erasing the pain, but in choosing to no longer let it name you. The soul does not want to keep score. The soul wants to be free. So let go, not because it didn't matter, but because you matter more. Release the resentment, not because they deserve it, but because you do. Release the identity built on wounds, not because it was false, but because it is too small for who you are becoming. Release the need to understand everything. Some things are not meant to be understood with the mind, but held with the heart. You are not your wounds. You are the love that was always there. You are the silence beneath the noise. You are the presence that remains when everything else falls away. And so now, in this sacred moment, choose again. Choose not to carry what is not yours. Choose not to replay the story that keeps you small. Choose to remember that you are infinite. Choose to rise. Because every time you rise, not in spite of your pain, but through it, you teach the world what healing really looks like. You become a lighthouse for others still lost in the storm. You become a reminder that love is stronger than fear, that presence is more powerful than pain, that spirit cannot be broken. You are not your wounds. You are the healing. There comes a moment, quiet, almost imperceptible, when the soul no longer seeks to be defended. It no longer clings to its history or waits for the world to affirm its worth. It simply rests not in the memory of what has been, but in the awareness of what is. And in that sacred pause, where nothing needs to be added and nothing needs to be erased, the truth stands clear. You were never incomplete. This realization does not arrive with trumpets. It doesn't crash through your resistance with force. It arrives like dawn, slowly, gently, turning darkness into light without asking permission. And suddenly, all that once felt unbearable becomes somehow sacred. Not because it was right, but because it led you here to this tenderness, this openness, this reverence for your own becoming. What you once saw as damage is now the doorway to depth. Not a wound to be covered, but a passage into clarity. And from that clarity, a soft knowing rises a knowing that does not need to be proven or shouted. It is the quiet authority of the soul reclaiming its ground, not as a warrior, but as a witness. You begin to understand that healing was never about going back to who you were, but about releasing everything you never truly were. You are not here to perfect your past. You are here to transcend it. You are not here to edit your story so it hurts less. You are here to outgrow the story entirely. To rise from the page as the presence that authored it, not the character caught in its plot. Let yourself feel that. Let yourself remember that who you are is not confined to the body that trembled or the mind that fractured in the face of pain. You are the stillness behind the trembling, the space beyond the thought. You are the witness who watched the heartbreak and the love that stayed even after the pieces fell. You are what survived. Not in spite of the storm, but through it, with it, and ultimately beyond it. The soul does not fear the storm. The soul understands that every gust of wind strips away what was never yours, that every lightning flash illuminates a truth too long hidden, that the thunder is not a warning but a drumbeat calling you home to yourself. And what is left, once the storm has passed, is not emptiness, it is spaciousness. It is peace, not as the absence of conflict, but as the presence of alignment when who you are no longer pretends to be who you were. There is no redemption in reliving the pain, only in releasing it, not through force, not through effort, but through remembrance. Because what the ego clutches to the need to justify, to defend, to hold on the soul, gently lays down, not as surrender to defeat, but as surrender to truth. You do not need to prove you are worthy of healing. You are healing. You are the evidence of life moving through what once felt lifeless. You are the echo of divinity reverberating through a form that has forgotten its origin. But even in that forgetting, grace has never left your side. And grace does not keep score. Grace does not ask, "Are you ready?" It simply arrives. It pours itself into your cracks, not to seal them, but to remind you that light travels best through the open. So now, breathe. Breathe not to fill a void, but to return to the rhythm that has always been yours, the breath that does not belong to yesterday or tomorrow, the breath that does not ask what you've endured. It simply is, as you are, unconditioned, untouched, free. In that breath, notice there is no wound, there is no label, there is no shame, there is only presence. And in presence, all things are made whole. You were never meant to carry your story like a shield. You were meant to live beyond it, like a sky that has finally remembered its own vastness. Your pain was never the problem. Your attachment to it was. And now, even that can be met with compassion. Let your suffering rest. It has done what it came to do. It brought you to this edge, this horizon of awakening. Now, your task is not to keep digging into the earth for answers, but to look up, to see the light that has been waiting to rise from the center of your being, a light that does not chase away the dark, but makes peace with it, a light that knows the dark was never its enemy, only its beginning. You are not here to become someone different. You are here to remember who you've always been beneath the forgetting. And what a glorious remembrance it is when the self drops away and only the self remains quiet, infinite, free. And when you stand in that freedom, even your story changes. Not because the facts are erased, but because your relationship to them is no longer one of bondage. You no longer say, "This happened to me." You say, "This moved through me and it awakened me." This is your power. Not in rewriting the events, but in reclaiming your identity. You are not your wounds. You are the one who walks forward anyway, barefoot on sacred ground, each step a prayer, not for answers, but for deeper awareness. You are the one who stopped waiting to be rescued because you finally remembered you are not broken, you are becoming. And becoming is not a straight path. It is a spiral. It brings you back to what you thought you had outgrown, but this time with eyes that see differently, with a heart that no longer braces, with a presence that no longer flinches. That is growth. Not the absence of pain, but the absence of resistance to it. Your liberation is not found in denying what hurt you. Your liberation is found in no longer confusing that pain with who you are. You are not your wounds. You are the ocean that contains them. You are the sky that opens wider than the clouds. You are the still flame in the center of the fire. You are the unshaken witness, the silent depth, the invisible, invincible truth. And this is the beginning of your return. You are not your wounds. You are the sacred pause between stories, the breath that existed before the wound ever touched you. You are the soft voice that whispers, "I am still here, even after everything else has gone silent." And that voice, that quiet, unwavering pulse of your being is not fragile. It is not wounded. It is eternal. The pain may have entered through the door of your humanity, but it has never reached the truth of your divinity. And the more you remember this, the less power your suffering holds over you. The wound loses its grip, not because it disappears, but because you no longer place your identity inside it. You become vast, so vast, that the wound itself dissolves into the infinity of your presence. This is not philosophy. This is freedom. It is the sacred moment you stop needing life to rewrite what happened and begin allowing life to reveal who you've become because of it. And not in a hardened way, no, not with armor, but with transparency, with the gentleness of one who has let the fire pass through and who now carries light where the weight used to be. You begin to walk differently. You no longer measure yourself by the reactions of others because you understand that truth does not require validation. You no longer shrink when challenged because you are rooted in something deeper than reaction. You are grounded in awareness. You see, awakening does not mean the storm stops. It means you stop fearing the rain. You let the sky do what it must because you found the shelter that can't be touched, the quiet cathedral within where the soul kneels not in suffering, but in surrender. And that surrender is not a giving up. It is a rising into life as it is, not as it was, not as you wished it to be, but as it is in this moment, whole and holy and completely enough. There is no greater peace than this. To no longer need to be seen through the lens of your pain, to no longer offer your past as an introduction, to no longer explain yourself through the trauma, but to let your presence speak for itself. You are not your wounds. You are the silence that does not seek applause. You are the love that did not shut down when the world forgot how to love. You are the steady flame that has learned how to glow in the absence of fuel. That is your miracle. That is your truth, and it cannot be taken. So now breathe again. Feel that breath as if it is the first. Feel it not as survival, but as a sacred choice. Each inhale a testament that you belong here. Each exhale a release of the weight that was never yours to carry. You do not need to hold on to your suffering to honor it. You honor it by living freely. You honor it by laughing fully. You honor it by loving with your whole being, knowing that you have earned this joy, not in spite of what you've been through, but because you had the courage to return to joy anyway. And now the time for waiting is over. You've waited long enough to be chosen. You've waited long enough to feel whole. You've waited long enough to begin, but you were never waiting for something outside you. You were waiting for your own return. And here you are, not perfect, not fixed, but real, unedited, unapologetic, unbound. You are the evidence that light is stronger than history. You are the embodiment of a soul that refused to stay asleep. You are not your wounds. You are the healing. You are the resurrection. You are the morning after the longest night, quiet, luminous, unshakably alive. And as you walk forward now, know this: nothing real can ever be lost. And nothing unreal was ever truly yours. The love that remains is the love that is you. The peace that remains is the peace that never left. The self that remains is eternal. And it is that self, beyond the scars, beyond the stories, beyond the names the world gave you. It is that self who speaks now, gently, clearly, undeniably. I am not what happened. I am what rose from it. You are not your wounds. You are the sunrise the night could not stop. You are the breath that broke through silence. You are the rebirth written into every cell of your being. You are the echo of divinity carried forward through time, through tears, through transformation. And now you are ready to rise, not as a survivor, not as a name defined by endurance, but as the presence that was never harmed to begin with. Because what you're awakening into is not a version of you that was once broken and is now repaired. That would still make the wound your origin. No, you are awakening into the truth that your essence has never been wounded. Your soul has always been whole. The pain did not create your strength, it revealed it. The loss did not give you depth, it uncovered it. The betrayal did not make you wise, it simply burned away the illusion that you were ever separate from wisdom itself. You are not the consequence of life, you are the cause of your own awakening. The creator, the source, rising back into recognition of itself. You are the soul, remembering that it was never at the mercy of the wound, it was the light observing it all. And so the old identities begin to fall away. The story of I am the abandoned one, gone. The story of I am the one who failed, gone. The story of I am the one they hurt, gone. And in the sacred quiet, beneath those voices, a new truth emerges. Not new because it was created, but new because you finally stopped looking away from it. A truth so simple, so clear, so alive, it feels like coming home. I am not what happened to me. I am what remains. The silence that listens, the love that keeps opening, the stillness that never flinched. And in this space here, now there is no effort required. There is no proving. There is no defense, because the soul has nothing to protect. It simply is. It shines because that is its nature. It loves because that is its breath. It gives because withholding is foreign to its being. When you live from this remembrance, the world changes, not because it stops being chaotic, but because you stop being entangled. You are no longer pulled into the past or hurled into imagined futures. You become presence itself. And presence does not resist life, it embraces it. You begin to see even the ones who hurt you differently. You no longer carry the weight of bitterness. You no longer mistake justice for vengeance. You no longer see your pain as a weapon or your healing as a performance. You begin to love them, not to excuse them, but because you no longer fear them. You see them through the eyes of the soul. And that is the final gift of awakening. Forgiveness, not the kind that demands forgetting, but the kind that no longer requires remembering. You forgive not because they deserve peace, but because you do. Because every ounce of energy you spend on resentment is a breath you steal from your own becoming. Forgiveness is not a release of them. It is a return to you, to the quiet garden of your own being, to the soft river that still flows, to the divine light that never once dimmed. And once you have returned, truly returned, you will find something unexpected. Gratitude, not gratitude for the wound, but gratitude through the wound. You'll see how it brought you to the edge of yourself. You'll see how it burned away every lie. You'll see how it left you with nothing but truth. And in that emptiness, you are finally free. Free to remember what you are. You are not your wounds. You are the sacred stillness that remains when everything else falls away. You are the soul that made it through. You are the presence that has nothing left to fear. You are the truth that cannot be undone. You are the one who knows. Nothing is missing. Nothing is broken. Nothing is lost. All is held. All is known. All is love. So now, let the old stories rest. Let the echoes fade. Let the wound close, not as an ending, but as a birth. The time of contraction is over. Now comes the expansion wide, infinite, true. You are not your wounds. You are the space they pass through. You are the eternity that survived. And now you are free. Truly, wholly, finally free. There comes a moment in every human life where silence speaks louder than memory, when the weight you've been carrying, the burden of what happened, what didn't, what should have finally grows too heavy to justify keeping. And in that sacred moment, the soul whispers something not taught in books, not preached in temples, not heard in the noise of this busy world. It says, let it go. Not out of weakness, not because you lost, but because the story you're repeating is no longer worthy of the divine being you are becoming. We are not born with our stories. We gather them. We inherit them from those who were wounded before us. We craft them from misunderstandings, from pain, from moments when love seemed absent. And then, like a script we never agreed to, we recite them again and again. He left me. She betrayed me. They never saw me. I was never enough. This always happens to me. And so we live in the echo of what was, even while life tries with all its miracles to remind us of what is. But my friend, listen to me with the ears of your soul. You are not your history. You are not your suffering. You are not the wound. You are the healing. You see, the story is just a frame, a container, a garment worn by the ego to prove its existence. But the lesson is eternal. It's what your soul came here for. And the universe, that sacred, intelligent field of love, it does not waste experience. Everything you've walked through, everything that broke you open, everything that left you trembling in the dark was a curriculum, not a punishment, a passage, but only if you drop the story. As long as you hold the tale, the villain, the victim, the blame, you are trapped in time. Your spirit becomes entangled in yesterday's fog, and what you cannot release, you are doomed to repeat. You may say, but it's true. It happened. I was hurt. I was abandoned. I was left behind. And you are right. It did happen. But you have chosen to keep the wound alive through the repetition of its narrative. Let me offer you something radical, something freeing. Truth is not in the facts of the past. Truth is in the freedom of the present. You do not heal by replaying the moment. You heal by retrieving the power it stole. That's what it means to drop the story and keep the lesson. The story says, I was unloved. The lesson says, now I know how deeply I crave presence. I will offer that to myself. The story says, I was betrayed. The lesson says, I now see the importance of self-trust. The story says, my childhood was broken. The lesson says, I carry within me the ability to reparent, to rebuild, to renew. This isn't denial. This is transcendence. You were never meant to live forever inside the storm. You were meant to walk through it and come out cleaner, clearer, stronger. The ego will tell you that to drop the story is to let them off the hook. But the soul knows you were never meant to hold them on the hook. You were meant to free yourself. Forgiveness is not the reward for someone else's apology. It's the sacred key that opens the door to your own peace. There is a beautiful truth that every mystic, every teacher, every awakened being comes to understand. What happens outside of you is not who you are. You are the awareness behind the experience. You are the stillness behind the noise. You are the one who watches the storm pass, not the storm itself. And when you drop the story, something miraculous happens. You remember your divine identity. You remember that before the hurt, before the name, before the form. You were light, and light does not cling to shadows. Letting go is not forgetting. It's honoring. It's saying, I respect this chapter enough to close it. That's not weakness. It's wisdom. It's the moment you rise above the battlefield and recognize no one wins when you keep reliving your wounds. Healing does not come through analysis. It comes through surrender. You will not solve your past. You will release it. Like a bird from its cage, like a flame from the candle, like a soul from its shackles. And then you will feel it, the space, the breath, the possibility. It returns. When the story dies, the soul finally speaks. It says, "You were never broken, only buried beneath beliefs." It says, "This pain was never meant to define you, only to refine you." It says, "There is no moment more sacred than the one you are in now." Drop the story, keep the lesson, because the lesson is gold, my friend. It's grace wrapped in fire. It's the seed of compassion, of insight, of power. It's the reason you can sit beside someone else's pain and say, "I see you. I've been there. I walked through it, and I made it out." You become a healer not by fixing others, but by becoming the living proof that healing is possible. But first, you must unclench the past. Not because it doesn't matter, but because you matter more. You must return to that still holy place within, where no story, no identity, no title, no trauma can exist. Only presence, only peace, only the now. Because in the now, there are no wounds, no resentment, no regret, only this breath and the divine being breathing it. So let it go. Let the old narrative fall like autumn leaves. Let the echoes fade. Let the images dissolve. And in that clearing, in that stillness, watch what rises. It will not be bitterness. It will not be fear. It will not be the voice of the past demanding your loyalty. It will be you, the real you, the untouched you, the soul that chose this life not to be defined by its suffering, but to alchemize it into light. And from that light, you will speak new words. Not words of pain, but of power. Not stories of survival, but songs of resurrection. This is the sacred invitation. Drop the story, keep the lesson, and become the truth beneath it all. You are not what happened to you. You are what you choose to become from it. And my dear friend, you were always meant to become free. And so here you are, standing at the edge of who you've been and who you're becoming, a quiet threshold, a sacred moment not marked by applause or ceremony, but by something deeper, a choice not to fight the past, not to defend it, but to release your identification with it. It's tempting to believe the old story keeps you safe, that if you keep it close, you won't forget, you won't be hurt again. But that's not safety, that's stagnation. Life, in its infinite wisdom, is always asking you to evolve, to rise, to return. And to return, you must empty your hands. You cannot receive the gifts of this moment with fingers clenched around yesterday. You must become willing to live undefended, to open the door and walk naked into the now unarmored, unburdened, unafraid. Because life doesn't meet you where you were. It meets you where you are. When you drop the story, you become available again. Available to love, available to grace, available to a version of yourself that your old wounds would have never believed possible. And perhaps that is the point. To stop identifying as the wounded one and start remembering you are the witness. You are the one who sees not just what happened, but what is happening now. Look around you. Notice the breeze. Feel your breath. Sense the silence beneath these words. There is a field of being here still, sacred, waiting. And in that field, there is no need for defense, for comparison, for memory. There is only awareness. And from that awareness, forgiveness becomes possible. Not as a favor to the past, but as a gateway to the present. Forgiveness is the great unclenching. It is the moment you stop trying to re-script what happened and instead begin writing a new truth, one authored by your awakening, not your agony. You see, when you drop the story, you do not erase your life. You finally begin to live it. You are not here to be right about what hurts you. You are here to become free from it. You are not here to convince others of your pain. You are here to transmute it into power. And that transformation does not require a courtroom. It requires only your willingness to let the light in. The light doesn't need your defense. It only needs your surrender. Let go of the illusion that you must carry everything forward, that every scar must be visible, that every betrayal must be remembered. The soul remembers differently. It does not store stories. It stores lessons and love, and even the most painful moments, once seen through the eyes of the soul, become holy. They become teachers, messengers, gateways to depth, to empathy, to truth. There is a reason why those who've suffered often shine with the most compassion. Because once the story is dropped, only love remains. Not naive love, but earned love. The kind that says, I have walked through the fire, and I no longer need to fear the flame. You become a lighthouse. Not because your waters were always calm, but because you learned to shine anyway. That is the alchemy. To stop needing anyone to pay. To stop trying to make it fair. And instead, to become whole. You cannot become whole while holding the pieces of the past, like proof of injury. You become whole when you place them down and remember that nothing essential was ever truly broken. You've always had your wholeness. It was just waiting beneath the noise. Drop the story and watch what returns to you. Joy, not happiness manufactured by circumstance, but the quiet joy of being, of knowing you don't have to carry it anymore, that your worth was never tied to your struggle. Peace. Not the fragile kind that comes from controlling others, but the lasting kind that blooms when you stop controlling yourself. Love, not the kind that begs to be rescued, but the kind that is the rescue. When the story is gone, you become available to life again, to the sunrise, to the laughter of children, to the grace hidden in ordinary moments. You find yourself smiling for no reason. You find yourself crying, not from sorrow, but from the sudden beauty of existence. You begin to remember that your life was never meant to be a courtroom of memory. It was always meant to be a temple of presence, and presence does not argue with the past. It breathes. So breathe into this moment. Breathe into the stillness that asks for nothing but your presence. You don't have to relive the wound. You don't have to prove the pain. You are allowed to let go without permission. You are allowed to be free now. This moment doesn't need your story. It needs your surrender. And when you surrender, the lesson comes forward. It rises like light from beneath the rubble. It hums with truth, with grace, with the gentle wisdom of your highest self. You are not who they said you were. You are not the sum of what they did. You are not the echo of the moment you broke. You are the quiet strength that rose. You are the healing that began. You are the lesson, not the loss. And you are here now, not by accident, but by design, to live, to love, to awaken. Drop the story, my friend. Let it fall like an old robe. Let it dissolve like a name you no longer answer to, because you were never that story. You were always free. There is a moment in every awakening where the soul begins to question not just the past, but the identity born from it. Not the events, not the memories, but the personality that was built to survive them. You see, the story does not only live in your words, it lives in your habits, in your posture, in your self-talk, in the way you tighten when someone gets too close, or in the way you chase achievement, hoping it will finally hush that old inner voice that once said you weren't enough. The story becomes a costume. It wears you. And after a while, you forget it was ever a choice. You call it me, my personality, my edge, my wounds. But it's not you. It's the version of you that rose to defend the most tender parts of your spirit. The child who stopped asking for love. The teenager who stopped trusting softness. The adult who learned how to perform, achieve, impress just to feel seen. The story taught you those strategies. And for a time, they served you. They protected the innocent part of your being until you were strong enough to return and claim it. But now you are strong enough. Now you can feel the exhaustion beneath your masks. Now you can hear the whispers of the soul beneath the noise of your proving. And the soul says, softly, always softly, you can take it off now. You don't have to be the character anymore. You can come home. This is not about rejecting your past. It's about reclaiming yourself from it. Because the real you, the one you came here to embody, is not the survival strategy. It is the sacred essence that existed before the story and will exist after every narrative dissolves. Let me tell you something the world rarely says out loud. You don't need more improvement. You don't need more achievement. You don't need more validation. You need more truth. And the truth is this: you were always worthy. You were always enough. You were always whole. Not because you earned it, not because you achieved spiritual perfection, but because you were created from something sacred. Call it God, call it source, call it life, universe, or divine intelligence. But know this: what made you does not make mistakes. And it did not put you here to carry wounds like trophies. You are not here to be a monument to what happened. You are here to be a channel for what's possible. And what is possible, dear soul, is peace. Not the peace of silence in a quiet room, but the peace of knowing you are not chained to the past. Not the peace of others liking you, but the peace of liking yourself enough to let go. This is the revolution. Not outside, but within, where you look at your reflection and finally say, I am not the events that shaped me. I am the spirit that chose to grow through them. You begin to recognize the difference between pain and identity. You begin to feel the quiet ache of self-betrayal every time you shrink to match your old story. And slowly, courage is born. Not loud, not flashy, but steady. The courage to let love in again. The courage to admit that your old armor is too small. The courage to imagine that maybe, just maybe, freedom is not found in controlling the future or analyzing the past, but in being fully here. You begin to tell the truth not to others first, but to yourself. You begin to notice when you're reenacting the old roles. You begin to ask, who am I when I'm not performing? Who am I when I'm not protecting? Who am I when I'm not trying to be what others expect? And the answers are breathtaking. You find softness. You find strength. You find a depth of being that cannot be captured in a story, only lived in presence. You discover that joy does not come from fixing what was. It comes from loving what is. You begin to see beauty in strange places. In the way your breath returns after a deep sigh, in the way the sunlight lands on a quiet room, in the way a tear rolls down your cheek, not from sadness, but from relief. The relief of no longer needing to carry it all. You can be gentle now, with yourself, with the past, with others who are still lost in their own stories, because you know something they don't yet. That pain does not make you special. It makes you human. And being human is not a flaw, it's the doorway to divine awareness. Only in this human form can you practice compassion. Only in this human heart can you learn forgiveness. Only in this human mind can you choose to see with the eyes of spirit. So choose to drop the narrative that says, I'll be free when choose to release the belief that your story must be understood by everyone else. Choose to trust that your healing is your own and it is enough. This is the quiet miracle, not lightning bolts, not sudden transformation, but the steady unfolding of a new way of being where you no longer have to be the one who was hurt. You can now be the one who woke up. And waking up means you don't need to relive it. You don't need to perform it. You don't need to justify it. You just live as freedom. You begin to walk not toward wholeness, but from it. You speak not to prove anything, but to bless everything. You look at the world with eyes that see beyond form, beyond ego, beyond role, and into essence. Because you've seen yourself that way. And now nothing else will satisfy. So bless the past. Bow to the teachers that gave you. Thank the storm for carving rivers into your soul. And then release it like breath, like birds, like prayers whispered into wind. Because what's ahead is not more repetition, but revelation. Not more pain, but peace. Not more story, but self. You are not here to repeat. You are here to remember. Remember who you were before the world told you who to be. Remember what it feels like to breathe without guilt, to love without fear, to live without apology. This remembering is the holy work of a lifetime. And it begins not with a battle, but with surrender. So surrender now. Surrender the identity that survived. And let the soul that thrives lead. And now, as the dust of all your retellings begins to settle, as the courtroom of memory closes its weary doors, as the heart, once guarded by storylines and scar tissue, finally exhales, you arrive. You arrive not in some polished version of yourself, not in some far-off enlightened state, but here now, raw, unburdened, and awake. You are not stepping into a future. You are stepping out of a prison. And that prison was never your pain. It was the identity you wrapped around it. It was the belief that the wound defined you, that the scar was your signature. But now, like a snake shedding its skin, you feel it loosening. The old story, the character you played so convincingly, the mask that once protected you now simply itches, and beneath it all is you, the true you, not the version that flinches in self-doubt, not the version who needs applause or explanation, but the deep, aware, sacred presence who has always been watching, waiting, remembering. Can you feel the difference? The silence is no longer hollow. It is holy. The stillness is not absence. It is essence. This moment right here is not a pause in your life. It is the return of your life. You are no longer searching for meaning in your history. You are now making meaning from your healing. And this is where the story ends, not with vengeance, not with resolution, but with reverence. You begin to look back, not with resentment, but with blessing. Not because what happened was right, but because what grew from it is beautiful. You start to whisper to your past self, thank you for surviving. Thank you for carrying us here. But now you can rest because the war is over. The version of you that lived in defense is no longer needed. The version of you that fought for love, begged for recognition, cried in silence, that version has earned its peace. Let it rest. Let it dissolve like mist at sunrise. Let the old armor fall to the earth like autumn leaves, with gratitude, with gentleness, with grace. Because now you are no longer armored. You are luminous. You are no longer trying to be heard. You are listening. You are no longer performing for belonging. You are belonging to yourself. And that is the ultimate freedom. No longer performing, no longer defending, no longer explaining who you are because your presence does all the speaking. You walk into rooms not wondering how people see you, but carrying the peace of someone who sees themselves. You speak not to prove, but to offer presence. You love not to possess, but to participate in the miracle of connection without clutching, without fear. You forgive not because they asked, but because your freedom matters more than their recognition. You breathe not to calm yourself, but because your breath is now home. This is what it means to drop the story. It is not erasure. It is emancipation. It is the radical act of no longer letting your past become your prophecy. And the most extraordinary part, you do not need to try to be this way. You simply need to stop trying to be what you're not. Because underneath every story, there is a soul, untouched, unchained, unshakable. That's you. That's what remains when the ego's theater closes and the light shines through the cracks in your identity. That's what God sees when you're not pretending. And in that space, you no longer need to be fixed. You only need to be felt. You no longer need permission to move on. You only need the courage to be still long enough to see you are always whole. And in this seeing, life becomes less of a race and more of a rhythm. You begin to move with the music of now, no longer trying to skip to the good part, no longer stuck on the worst chapter. You begin to live in harmony with presence. And presence, dear soul, is everything. It's the medicine. It's the altar. It's the final destination that was never far away. Presence is where you finally feel what your story never allowed you to feel. It's where the tears rise, not from pain, but from relief. It's where you look around and suddenly nothing is missing. Not because everything is perfect, but because you are no longer resisting the imperfection. This is what freedom tastes like. It's not loud. It's not wild. It's not external. It is the quiet knowing that you can breathe without justifying your joy, that you can rest without guilt, that you can shine without explanation. You are no longer auditioning for peace. You are peace. You are no longer seeking love. You are love. You are no longer chasing light. You are the light revealed by the very letting go you once feared. And now, what remains? Only your soul, your quiet, radiant, sovereign soul, the you that came before the pain, the you that lived through the storm, the you that rises now, not from anger, not from shame, but from deep spiritual remembrance, that you is who you were always meant to become. Not a better version, not a fixed version, but a true version. And in that truth, you become a presence that heals without effort. A mirror for others, not of perfection, but of possibility. People will feel it. They will sense it in your stillness. They will wonder how you carry such peace, such clarity, such unshakable calm. And if they ask, you won't need to explain. You'll simply smile and say gently, I dropped the story and I kept the lesson. And in those words is a life, is a path, is a practice, is a love so deep it cannot be taught, only lived. So walk now, not in search, but in remembrance. Walk not with a plan, but with presence. Walk not as someone with something to prove, but as someone who has already arrived, because you have, this is the arrival. This is the letting go. This is the peace beyond the story. So breathe in the silence. Breathe in the freedom. Breathe in the soul you've finally come home to. Drop the story. Keep the lesson. And live, truly live as the freedom you were always destined to be.